Welcome back to CASE Documentaries. Thank you so much to all of my patrons. If your name is on screen right now, then you're a legend. Our love and respect goes out to all those that knew and loved Linda and all those affected by this dark case. Viewer discretion is advised for this educational documentary. Linda Stoltzfoos was an 18-year-old timid girl. She lived a quiet life with her family. She was the oldest of 8 children, thriving as a member of the Mennonite Amish community. She lived with her family in Bird in Hand, Pennsylvania. The Mennonite Amish order is a religious group. They strictly hold on to specific rules and teaching, including strict dress and hair codes, as well as the rejection of any type of modern technology such as cars or electricity. Because of this, not too much is known about Linda and her family's lifestyle or history, but it seems that they preferred it this way. What we do know is that Linda had a heart of gold. Her passion in life was tutoring Amish children with learning disabilities with their schoolwork. Members of the non-Amish community that lived in the area only had praises for Linda and her family, saying that they were hard-working, kind, and respectful. To members within the community, Linda was more like a relative than just a neighbor. Bird in Hand is a small community in Lancaster County, acting as the heart of the Amish community. Although they do not partake in everyday luxuries like driving or cell phones, they still manage to contribute much to the economy of Lancaster through farming, as well as selling goods like candles and soaps. It was a place that was known for good, honest work with little commotion or drama. That is until Linda, one day, didn't return home from church. It was Father's Day, June the 21st of 2020. Linda had left for church at about 9:30 a.m, walking the half-mile road in the morning breeze. She was meant to arrive home between 12:30 and 1 p.m. There she would change out of her church attire and into something more casual to attend a youth meeting. After that, the rest of the day was hers to celebrate her father on this special day. When Linda's parents received word that she had not shown up to the youth meeting, they immediately went to check in her bedroom. If Linda had made it home, she definitely would have changed out of her church clothes. But those clothes were nowhere to be found. The only conclusion that Linda's parents could make is that she never actually made it back home. Worry must have immediately set into their hearts. Although the Amish community don't generally use electricity, they do have landline phones in cases of emergencies such as this. They called the police to report their daughter missing. This immediately gained the attention of the community. The next day, on Monday, every police department in Bird in Hand and Lancaster County rallied together to search for Linda, as well as hundreds of members of the Bird in Hand community. After 2 days of searching without any luck, the FBI became involved in Linda's case. The first notion by investigators was that Linda had run away from home. It wasn't necessarily uncommon for people her age to become overwhelmed with the demands of Amish life, longing to explore the rest of the world and how other people lived. But this wasn't Linda's desire, at least not as far as anyone knew. Countless members of the community spoke of Linda's passion and desire towards the work she was doing in the schools in her community, and they believed that she had no desire to leave it all behind. In addition to this, Linda had planned tons of trips and activities in the upcoming weeks, so the idea that she had upped and left was out of the question and pretty nonsensical. With that road quickly being blocked, investigators had to find a new angle. The first person investigators spoke to was a member of the church Linda had visited on that Sunday morning. They reported that nothing was out of the ordinary. Linda was her normal, happy self, and she even talked with them about her plans for that day. She then left the church at around noon to make the half-mile walk back home. This was to prepare for her youth meeting. She walked barefoot, carrying her shoes. From the church, officers followed in Linda's footsteps along the route home. They spoke to people who lived on that road, asking them if they had seen her on that day. One man who lived on the road had been sitting on his porch when Linda was walking home. Upon speaking with him, the man reported the oddity of seeing a car driving down the road at around 12:30 p.m. It was a red sedan with 2 people inside. When attempting to describe the driver and the passenger, he reported the driver as a darker-skinned man with black curly hair. And as far as the passenger, he couldn't make out anything beyond seeing something white. Luckily for the FBI investigators, there was local surveillance footage that provided a view of the road that Linda walked down on that day. The footage, although low quality, showed the car, a Kia Rio with dings, stickers and a spoiler, driving down the road at 12:36 p.m. It then showed the car pulling over and out of view of the camera. At 12:41 p.m, the footage showed a female in light-coloured clothing walking down the road. A female that police believed was Linda. At this time, a man walked down the road towards Linda. Investigators watched as they tried to make out exactly what was occurring. Disturbingly, it seemed as though the man had put something over the woman's head, and then the two walked down the road together back towards the red car. The car drove down the road towards Sarah's church in view of the surveillance camera, and police could now see the white object that the witness described from that day. And although they couldn't confirm it, they believe the driver had covered the passenger's head with something. Investigators knew that their next step was to track down the owner of the red Kia. Luckily, the unique characteristics of the car allowed the FBI to find that it belonged to a man named Justo Smoker. Smoker was freshly out of prison and employed at Dutchland Incorporated, a manufacturing company involved in the concrete industry. Investigators then went to visit Dutchland, located about 10 miles from Bird in Hand. Luckily, the familiar red car was parked in the parking lot. It had all the exact same markings, stickers and the spoiler as the one that was seen on surveillance footage. With this match, they continued following this lead. They waited for Smoker to get off work that evening and followed him back to his apartment. They now knew exactly where Smoker lived and would interview him the next day. The next day came and FBI investigators made their way to Justo's apartment. They asked him what he knew about Linda's disappearance. They gave him no information regarding the evidence they had collected so far. This allowed them the opportunity to catch him in a lie. To their advantage, he said he had no idea who or where Linda was. He also said that he hadn't even been in that area on June the 21st. He also confirmed that he never had any passengers in his car, and that he was the only one who drove his red Kia Rio. But because of the surveillance footage, investigators knew that Smoker was lying. Their suspicion of him only grew as they continued to collect evidence. As the investigation continued, agents collected the testimonies of numerous members of the Amish community who had seen the now notorious red Kia. On June the 20th, the day before Linda's disappearance, witnesses saw a red sedan on 3 separate occasions. The first was by a group of 4 Amish women walking down the road. They saw this red sedan. This red sedan drove past them 3 times. They too described the driver as a darker-skinned man with dark curly hair. Later that day, 2 Amish women were walking down a different road. They too saw a red sedan drive past them 3 times. Becoming fearful of it, they used shortcuts to get away. And finally, an Amish girl was walking alone when a red sedan drove by her slowly 4 times. She said the man inside was staring at her relentlessly. In fear, the girl ran towards a group of fishermen and hid in a nearby barn. She peeked outside and saw the car had parked in the field next to the barn, and then it just sat there waiting. The girl waited until the car left so she could finally emerge. Investigators now knew that Smoker was establishing a pattern of stalking Amish women, and he was doing this on the very day before Linda's disappearance. All they had to do was to get someone to confirm that she was in the car with him. They worked tirelessly to pull together additional surveillance footage, all to try to get a better view of where Justo might have gone on June the 21st. Luckily, they gained footage of the red car driving towards Linda's church. It then pulled around the back for 5 minutes, emerging and driving back down the road. From this angle, they were able to see where the car headed next, out hunting for more Amish females. There was now the emergence of more eyewitness accounts. On June the 21st at 1:30 p.m, an Amish couple were walking down a nearby road when they saw a red car drive past them. The woman looked in the passenger seat and saw something strange. An Amish girl in a white apron and wearing a black head covering. This was strange for 2 reasons. Firstly, because an Amish girl was in a car, and secondly, because of the black head covering. According to the woman of the couple, Amish girls were only meant to wear black head coverings when they attended church, and they were never to wear them anywhere else. The woman continued to explain how she waved to the girl, and the girl didn't wave back. This was despite them making eye contact. This was equally as strange as it was a strict Amish custom to wave at each other when passing by out of respect. Right after this, closer to 2 p.m, a man was riding on his horse and buggy when he also saw a red sedan pass by. He said the driver was a Hispanic man with dark curly hair, and the girl in the passenger seat was wearing a white apron and a black head covering. This new information was enough for investigators to gain warrants for searching both Justo's car and his cell phone records. This search found everything that investigators needed. His phone records showed that he had been in every area that eyewitnesses had described. This was including the road where Linda was taken. In search of his car, his floor mats were missing, and an open bottle of bleach was inside. His phone records also showed that he had been at a nearby Amish-owned establishment multiple times in the days after Linda's disappearance. Upon investigation, they discovered that a trooper had responded to a call about a suspicious red vehicle in the parking lot of their store, and they described a darker-skinned man with dark curly hair snooping around. The car had left and returned hours later, this time backing into the exact same parking spot. Police immediately went to the store and discovered Linda's clothing. A white bra and a brown pair of stockings knotted together. FBI agents questioned Smoker again with this new evidence, asking him why he had been at this store. He responded that sometimes he took back roads to get around, and that his phone records might have pinged him there as he drove by some days. Smoker wasn't budging on his story, and investigators now needed cold, hard evidence. Linda's clothing was sent off to be tested for DNA evidence, and agents were not surprised by what they discovered. Justo Smoker's DNA was all over Linda's brown stockings. Justo was arrested on July the 10th and charged with kidnapping and false imprisonment, but he stood by his claims of being not guilty. And by this point, enough time had passed where police could be sure that Linda was no longer alive. They knew that Justo Smoker was responsible, and it was just a matter of time before they could charge him. In December of 2020, Justo Smoker was charged with the passing of Linda Stoltzfoos, but he still remained tight-lipped. 4 more months would tick by before Justo's conscience got the better of him. In exchange for a plea deal, he confessed to ending Linda's life and directing investigators to where her body was hidden.
This picture is taken from a parking lot of the business. It shows a stone graveled walking path that leads up to the tree line. Behind the tree line would be the railroad tracks. Investigators, unable to find the site or any indication of a grave, then escorted Smoker from the East Lampeter Township Police Station to the burial site, and within a short time, Linda's remains were recovered, wrapped in a tarp, and buried approximately 42 inches deep.
Linda was found buried in a shallow grave near the railroad tracks behind Dutchland Incorporated. As we know, this was Justo's place of work. Linda was wrapped in a tarp. She had been throttled and inflicted with a wound to her neck. Now that her body had been discovered, investigators used dental records to identify her as Justo pieced his story together. He said after wrestling to place a bag over Linda's head in the road, he intimidated her into silence as he walked her back to his car. In a drunken stupor, he had removed Linda's head restraint behind the church that day, then driving her away so he could fulfill his sadistic desires. Once he felt he was in a place of safety, Smoker attacked and assaulted Linda. He wrapped his arm around her neck. This was followed by a string of shoelaces until she took her final breath. The days prior was simply Smoker's attempt at finding the perfect girl, one that was alone, timid, and easy to catch. And sadly, Linda was that girl. During his sentencing, Smoker would plead guilty to multiple charges of kidnapping, false imprisonment, violation of parole, tampering with evidence, and possession of instruments of crime. This was in addition to his guilt in ending Linda's life. Despite his plea bargain, prosecutors ensured that Smoker would never see freedom again. He was sentenced to 88 years in prison for his crimes against Linda Stoltzfoos. While Linda's family chose not to attend any of Justo's court proceedings, they still told the prosecution that they would one day forgive Justo for what he did. Justo pleaded for forgiveness from Linda's family, as well as trying to forgive himself. He said that he wasn't raised to do this, and that all he could do was say he was sorry for taking away Linda's light. He said, "Because of me, the world is dimmer." Linda's family, through the prosecution, would respond, saying, "For some, it will come soon, but others may need to work on it for some time and maybe daily. The Bible does teach us we are to forgive." Do you think the punishment fits the crime here? What do you think can be done to avoid something like this happening again in the future? Please do let me know down in the comments. And if you appreciate what I'm doing here, please do like the video. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.